Okay, let's start with a quick thought experiment. Right now, I want you to picture a specific number in your head. Imagine the exact annual income, or maybe the total net worth, that would finally make you feel entirely comfortable. You know, the number where you just sit back, exhale, and say, yep, I have enough. Got it? Well, human psychology practically guarantees that the number you're picturing right now is a complete illusion. And that's because of something we might call the doubling effect, which proves that the finish line you're imagining doesn't actually exist. If you ask someone earning $30,000 a year what they need to be comfortable, they'll almost always tell you $60,000. Ask the person earning $100,000, they'll say $200,000. Ask a millionaire, and suddenly the target becomes $2 million. At nearly every single income level across the board, people genuinely believe they need roughly twice as much to finally be happy. It proves a fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying point. Nobody ever arrives. The number just keeps moving.
So, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the brilliant insights of financial author Morgan Housel, specifically his thoughts on the art of spending money. For years, the financial world has been totally obsessed with the mechanics of how we grow wealth. But today, we're shifting the focus to a much harder and infinitely more psychological question. What do you actually do with all that money once you have it? Why does acquiring it so rarely fix the deeply rooted problems we thought it would? Let's figure it out together.
Section 1. The moving target. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the core internal flaw of why our brains just won't let us be happy with what we already have. Housel boils this entire concept down to a brilliantly simple formula. Wealth is exactly equal to what you have minus what you want. Really think about that for a second. True happiness and contentment come down to the gap between your resources and your desires. Mathematically, this means there are only two ways to become wealthier. You can either earn more or you can want less. And of those two options, only wanting less works immediately, it costs absolutely nothing, and it doesn't require a single ounce of permission from the outside world. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact concept in the real world. Housel contrasts the totally miserable billionaires he's met throughout his career against his own grandmother-in-law. Now, his grandmother-in-law spent 3 decades in retirement living on just $1,700 a month from Social Security. On paper, she was hovering near poverty. But mentally, she was one of the absolute happiest people you could ever meet. She had very little, sure, but her desires were even smaller. Her actual wealth gap was massive compared to billionaires who have infinite fortunes, but whose desires completely outpace their massive incomes. If your expectations grow faster than your income, you will never, ever feel wealthy. Section 2. The hidden wounds. Let's move on and explore the psychology of why really smart people make incredibly irrational money choices to heal their internal insecurities. There's this remarkable story Housel shares about a LASIK eye surgeon out in San Francisco. A patient came back to the clinic after a perfectly successful procedure, furious, claiming the surgery had completely ruined her life. But the thing is, her vision was flawless. The real issue? She had secretly believed that getting rid of her glasses would make her husband find her more attractive and make her coworkers respect her more. When her social life didn't magically transform overnight, she was devastated. The surgeon essentially had to tell her, look, you have a problem I just can't help you with. The truth is, all behavior makes sense with enough information. When you see someone buying a luxury car they clearly can't afford, it looks totally irrational. But it makes perfect sense once you realize they aren't buying transportation. They are spending money to fulfill a deep, hidden desire to be seen and validated. Section 3. The status trap. Watch out for these external spending traps and the completely unwinnable games we play to impress other people. Way back in 1968, there was a solo, non-stop around-the-world sailing race. Donald Crowhurst was an amateur who entered purely for the glory. To maintain his image, he literally spent months faking his coordinates to look like a hero, until the weight of that massive fraud drove him to madness and he was lost at sea. But in that exact same race, a legitimate expert named Bernard Moitessier was actually on track to win the whole thing, but he realized the fame would completely ruin his peace. So what did he do? He quit the race, abandoned the prize money, and just kept sailing to Tahiti to save his soul. One man destroyed himself chasing what others thought of him. The other walked away from a guaranteed victory because it conflicted with who he really was. It forces us to interrogate our own motives, doesn't it? Ask yourself, does this purchase actually serve my life, or does it just serve my image? When you spend just to serve your image, you start accumulating something Housel calls social debt. Every single time you upgrade your lifestyle to be seen, you are taking on invisible liabilities. Let me give you a wild example of this. Frank Lucas was a notorious drug dealer who ran a massive empire but managed to stay completely invisible to law enforcement for years just by keeping a super low profile. Then, in 1971, he wore a custom $100,000 floor-length chinchilla coat to the Ollie Frazier boxing match. He sat in seats better than Frank Sinatra. That single purchase of social status turned an invisible man into a massive target, and it eventually landed him a 70-year prison sentence. Now, you don't have to be a criminal to suffer from social debt. Upgrading your car or moving to a fancier zip code instantly invites new obligations, judgments, and expectations that just weigh you down. I want to slow down for just a second here to really let the gravity of this quote from Naval Ravikant land. The best position to be in is rich and anonymous. Just think about how much absolute freedom is wrapped up in that one idea. Housel advocates strongly for what he calls quiet compounding. Go slow, stay invisible. Let the incredible results of your financial discipline speak only to you, rather than shouting them to the whole neighborhood.
Section 4. Compounding memories. It's time to weigh the tension between saving for an independent future and the very real danger of hoarding every dollar while your life just passes you by.
Your ultimate goal shouldn't just be to die with the biggest possible bank account. The real goal is to minimize future regret. Housel tells this heartbreaking story of a super responsible father who skipped family vacations every single summer just to put that money into savings. And, it was a really smart financial move on paper. But 20 years later, his kids are fully grown, he has the money, but his children never talk about his awesome savings account. They only remember the trips they never got to take. He traded something that would have compounded in meaning for something that only compounded in dollars, and you simply cannot buy those years back. Memories compound in value. A really fun trip you take at age 9 becomes one of your most treasured, priceless possessions by the time you're 50. But so many people can't bring themselves to spend money on those moments because they suffer from frugality inertia. This is when the core identity of being a saver completely takes over your life. You've spent 40 years packing lunches and driving beat-up used cars, doing absolutely everything right. But when retirement finally comes, you can't even touch your nest egg, not because you can't afford to, but because spending money actually feels like losing your identity. You did all the hard work, but you can never actually enjoy the harvest. The antidote to this trap is what we call mental liquidity. You have to be able to fluidly adapt your mindset as your seasons of life change. Think about it. You saved to buy freedom. Once you have it, you need the mental flexibility to actually use it. Housel puts it pretty bluntly. Wanting more money than you actually need to be independent and happy isn't a life strategy. At that point, it's really just an accounting hobby. Tech pioneer Tim O'Reilly sums this up perfectly. Money is just the gasoline for your life's road trip. It is completely essential. You absolutely do not want to run out of gas while you're out there driving. But your life shouldn't be a tour of gas stations. The fuel is just there to get you to a destination. It is not the destination itself. Section 5. Money as a tool. Let's build into our final framework and see the grand contrast of how wealth can either entirely consume you or completely set you free. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is looking at these two vastly different legacies. The Vanderbilts amassed an inflation-adjusted fortune of around $300 billion, but they treated spending as this toxic competition, constantly trying to outdo each other with lavish estates and endless parties. Within just a few generations, that unimaginable wealth was entirely gone, having literally destroyed the family from the inside out. Now contrast that with Chuck Feeney, who amassed an $8 billion fortune and then spent his life quietly giving almost all of it away to philanthropy. No big press conferences, no giant buildings with his name on them. The Vanderbilts let their money become who they were. Chuck Feeney viewed his money merely as a tool, and when the job was done, he happily let it go. So, what is the ultimate takeaway from all of this? Housel boils the good life down to this incredibly clear mathematical equation: independence plus purpose. The absolute best use of your money is to buy your own freedom, to buy your time back. And once you finally have that independence, you use it to build something that actually matters to you. So the crucial point is this: every single time you open your wallet, you are making a choice. I want to leave you with this final thought to carry with you today. Take a hard look at your own finances and ask yourself honestly, is every dollar you spend building the life you actually want? Or are you just performing for people who aren't even paying attention? The paintbrush is in your hand. You get to decide what the canvas of your life looks like. Use your money to serve your life. Never let it become your life. Thank you so much for joining me for this Explainers, and I'll catch you on the next one.